Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT. And this week we're going over UFC Vegas 40, headlined by Aspen Ladd going up against Norma Dumont. If you guys remember, Norma Dumont was actually supposed to go up against Holly Holm, and in steps Aspen Ladd after her botched weight cut about 2 weeks ago, I believe it is now. And the UFC seemingly rewards her with the main event slot here up at 145 pounds going up against Norma Dumont. So we'll see how it plays out for Aspen Ladd, especially at this higher weight class, and whether, a lot of people are saying at the weigh-ins today, Aspen Ladd seemed to be a little bit bigger. So let's see how that plays into this fight, especially with Norma Dumont herself having issues making 135 pounds. Before I kick things off, I do want to let you guys know tomorrow, the Fight Day live chat, normally at 1 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow because I have, just complete a complete day tomorrow. I got some plans tomorrow. I got some people coming over, so I don't even know if I'm going to be watching the card live. So keep that in mind. If you guys are sticking around tomorrow for the Fight Day live chat, it's at 11 a.m., not 1 p.m. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest. He's been making the rounds over the last couple of weeks now, and I've been impressed with what I've been seeing with my guy. But a quick little backstory in case you guys aren't aware of who this guest is. Formerly, or at least before, I used to come across him in the comment section of all my YouTube stream, or most of my YouTube streams, and a lot of the other predictors YouTube streams. And it's weird how his character has built itself. Like, he started off as a playful troll in a sense, where he was just like always saying the most absurd things. I felt it was like he was saying like Holly Holm has the best wrestling in the division, or just stupid shit, right? Like just random shit. I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head. Gadzimurad Antigulov has the greatest cardio, something like that. Like just something outrageous. And then he slowly started morphing into this guy that was actually spitting legitimate shit. Like he was actually dropping good analysis, and I was interested into seeing who he was and what he was all about. And luckily, when I finally got that special DM saying that he was finally ready to show his face, finally ready to drop in these prediction videos and hopping on people's streams, I was more than happy to abide by it and have him jump on here. So without further ado, let me bring in the GOAT, the self-proclaimed GOAT, but I think everybody in the community is more than happy to give him that title. We got my guy Tajikbay. Tajik, what's happening, brother?
Not much is happening. All good, and thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I think this GOAT conversation has emerged, and a lot of people are asking why GOAT. Is he a good capper? Is he a good DFS player? I'm not. I'm GOAT for a simple reason that I support MMA community. Morally, financially, and now digitally as well. I come in on the show, and want to provide insights, and it has a trickle down effect because now we have a happier audience, more engaged, a more knowledgeable audience that they make better sound betting decisions and DFS decisions. So that's what I'm here for. So when you ask me, am I a capper, am I a DFS player? I have a great results. It's on my Twitter, but that's not why people call me GOAT. They called me GOAT because I'm here for the MMA community, and I will continue to be here and support it everywhere I can. So yeah.
Humble as always, and that's something that I definitely wanted to like give you some credit for. The one question that I truly have though is where did this transformation come from? And not to mention, when you initially started coming out to the comment section, this is not what I expect. I'm gonna be completely honest. You have like hitman vibes, you know what I mean? You have like you got the white room, you got the black turtleneck, you got the almost shaved head. It looks like you're after this stream you're gonna go murder somebody just for a high paying customer or something like that. How did this transformation become where you're just like, I'm gonna slightly troll friendly, and then I'm gonna start bringing in my insight? What was, give me some background of how you got into the MMA community, and then how you got yourself to this point?
Well, I've been an MMA fan for a long time, back from the Pride days, with Fedor and Randleman, Krokop, and the others, But even before that, growing up, I watched Royce Gracie. So I've been, watching fights for well over 20 years, And where is the transformation of characters coming from? I think it's coming from heart,
Yeah.
That's who I am, I'm here. um you know uh, uh, yeah, and that's the best way I can answer it, right? Because like I said, I'm a big supporter of the MMA community. I want to continue to support it. I'll, and content creator like yourself, because it's very hard. People don't understand. Somebody like yourself, Manpreet, coming in, and to produce the content that you put, do all the research, work with the community on Patreon and elsewhere. How hard it is, right? So for me, it's as somebody, I feel a great deal of empathy, and the support that I'd like to, render to yourself and others. So that's all I have to say on this topic.
Trust me, it's greatly appreciated from myself and the rest of the content creators in our space as well, because you've been pretty much helping us out financially as well with all the super chats that you've been dropping, and then obviously all the support as well. And now to finally have you in the digital sphere, as you like to call it, it is amazing and not to mention, not just have you on the digital sphere, but you are like a legitimate analyst. You actually like take the time and do the breakdowns and look into most of these fights and give your most in-depth knowledge that you're able to give. So I'm very happy to have you on. And once you reach out to me, I'm like, it's just a matter of time until I get this guy on the show. This you gotta bear with me a little bit, Tajik. I have people, every other week hit me up and be like, hey, have me on your show, have me on your show. And then I was happy to see you actually go on somebody else's show and you were legitimate. And that's I didn't want to question your credibility before that. But once I saw you on somebody else's show and saw that you were like legit, I'm like, okay, I gotta have this guy on. So hopefully you're with us for a long time down the road, because we definitely benefit from your analysis and your research. And again, your hitman like looks, man. I can't get over it. I wanted to make an avatar for you where it's just like, this guy's a hitman. That's what it looks like to me. But it's a compliment to Cheek.
No, it's a compliment. I don't have anything on my schedule regarding that, so there's nothing happening tonight. So, but that's all.
Okay, not tonight. Perfect.
I leave it at that. Yeah.
If you guys don't see me next week, you know what happens, because I bought into Tajik's game plan here. All right, let's not waste two more time. We're getting into UFC Vegas 40, headlined by Aspinall against Norman Dumont here. We did lose a fight earlier this morning. Julian Marquez did not make the scale. It did say non-COVID health issue or something like that. So possibly related to weight cutting, if anything. The guy's a big dude, especially to get down to that 185-pound weight class. So yeah, we did lose one fight this morning. So we do have a 10-fight scale slate, sorry. And just to remind you guys, it's an early start, 4:30 p.m. Eastern start time for the prelims. So don't get caught napping. All right, let's start off right at the bottom of the card. We got Ariane Carnelossi going up against Estela Nunes, minus 140 right now on Carnelossi, plus 120 on Nunes. I'll kick things off here, and then I'll swing it on over to you, Tajik. Carnelossi, I like to call her like the female John Lineker. She likes to move forward. She likes to throw big bombs. Sometimes she'll go for a takedown, but more often than not, she wants to strike with you. She wants to try to take your head off, and you can see it on her record based on how many knockout victories she actually has. On the flip side, we got Estela Nunes making her UFC debut 2 years after she actually originally got signed to the UFC. She was scheduled to face Angela Hill, and then she got popped by USADA, and we haven't seen her since then. And the one thing interesting that I noticed, especially if you look at her Instagram page, is she was spending a lot of time at American Top Team until she got popped. And then she went back to her home gym. I don't even recall the name of it. But since then, it doesn't seem like she's been up at American Top Team. So if people want to say she's been training there for this specific camp, they're just flat out wrong, because that is not exactly what happened. She has had experience training at American Top Team, but not specifically for this type of matchup. She brings a great Muay Thai background to the UFC. I believe 2-time world champion or 4-time world champion, but very good skill set, especially when you look at her tape. Good distance striking, good pinpoint accuracy. The only flaw in her record is the champion over there at one championship, Angela Lee. She was able to submit her, I believe, in the first round there. But then since then, again, 7-1 record, pretty good. I have too many question marks about her. It seems like one of those spots where if she just stays on the outside, she should be able to pick apart Ariane Carnelossi, but who knows what she's going to look like off the sauce, off the juice, off all that stuff, and especially off this big time layoff. And you don't want to have any issues, especially when you're going up against a girl like Ariane Carnelossi, because one little slip up and you're probably staring up at the lights here. I am reluctantly going to side on the Carnelossi side here, just because of the unknowns that we have about Nunes. And no way am I investing my money into this fight, just because, like, let's just sit back. Let's see what Nunes brings to the table, and then let's better accordingly afterwards. Is there anything that you can unravel about this fight that I haven't already touched upon? And ultimately, how do you feel about it, brother?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point that we don't know a lot about is Stella, and I think it's also a fair point to say that she doesn't know a lot about herself, right? As you said, she popped for steroids, and it's an interesting story in itself, because she popped for stanozolol, right, which is known as commonly as Winstrol, right? So Winstrol, became popular. in 1988, right? That was his coming out party. When Ben Johnson smoked Carl Lewis in the Tokyo Olympics. I think 9.79 was his time, and he looked like a machine. There was no way Carl Lewis is going to beat this race. But then he popped, and when people tried to find out which anabolic metabolite it was tonozolol, right? And this is what Estela had popped for, and she had multiple metabolites, and it's a very strong, solid metabolite that helps you, to gain edge, and it's also has limited side effects compared to the more common anabolics. But what happens, hence the reason why it's used by female athletes a lot. So when she popped for it, she's actually said, I did not know that I was using it. And so the thing is, uh,
How often do you believe that from a fighter, though, right?
well, the problem is that it's a very specific anabolic. It's used, like if she didn't know, we even have a bigger problem, because imagine herself, she doesn't know what she is, at what point she started taking it, right? She got popped for it, she got banned for it. USADA banned her for 2 years, right? And so if she doesn't know in herself, how her body will respond to that, to being off the sauce, right? And so, but those how those sauce wars has started in 1988. After that, every bodybuilder would call their doctor to ask this one question: how do I get this? And it's common. It's an old school drug, and I think was developed in 1950 to treat anemia in children, and then find the wider application. So it's interesting for me. She comes back, and then they give her Angela Hill, and then she gets injured, and guess who comes in to support her, to replace her rather, right? It's Carnelossi. She takes this fight, and I think she makes a good account of herself, and she gets caught cuts in the third round by an elbow, and the fight gets stopped. And so and then in the next fight in the Linyang, she stops Linyang. And so I think generally she's in a better position right now. She has a couple of fights under her belt. She has a little bit money off of that win. She has better nutrition, I'm assuming. And so uh, but she has to be smart about fighting Estella, like you said. She's a Muay Thai fighter. Multiple times world champion. So she would has to mix up. And her social media, Carnelossi, is actually. When I looked it up, I saw that she was a little bit leaner this time around. She wasn't as muscular, which makes me think she puts a lot of focus, on the cardio game. She would have to do that. She would have to clinch. She would have to try to take Estella down, because standing wise, she would play into Estella's game, right? Estella is a good counter striker. That's what we have to remember. And so if she mixes it up, I think she can win, and she can win comfortably. I support here is Carnelossi, and if you're trying to take Estella, I think you're right. Just stay away. Find out who she is. Find out how she is off the sauce, and then maybe next time she can consider her as a bet.
Yeah, it's interesting because we are seeing the line move a little bit now in towards the Nunes side. I believe it was roughly around minus 185 for Carnelossi. Now I'm seeing closer like minus 140, minus 150 for Carnelossi. So, people might be trying to fade the Carnelossi side strictly because the Muay Thai background of Nunes in this spot. So we'll see how that actually plays out for them. Again, this is a sit back and wait for me type of thing. It seems like you're taking the same type of approach here. And especially when you're talking about, hundreds or thousands of dollars that you're putting on these fights. You don't want to go into these blind, especially with a situation like this. All right, let's keep the train moving along. We got the UFC return of Brandon Davis going up against Dana Batgerel. We got minus 150 now on Batgerel and plus 130 on Brandon Davis. I'll actually let you kick this one off, Tajik. How are you feeling about this matchup? And do you think the returning Brandon Davis can, pull off the upset in his return?
It's a tough matchup for Davis, because I'm not sure what he has to offer for Dana Batgerel in this matchup, right? He's low volume. His ground game, we haven't seen that. I mean, he took Giga Chikadze down 3 times, right, and only had, I think, like 3 minutes of the control time, right? When you're looking into Dana Batgerel, he throws more, he's more accurate, he's much more lethal. And standing wise, I think he can cause a lot of trouble. Before the broadcast, I was actually thinking if there is a chance for Dana to be the first person to ever KO KO him, and I think there is a chance. I think if he throws that good hook, sits a little bit, and he's a good boxer. Dana is, I think there is a chance he's gonna put him away. It puts me at odds, and I'm kind of like, I don't understand the fascination with trying to bet against Dana Batgerel at this point, because Brandon Davis, he was a huge favorite against Kyle Bochniak. I said it before. He was a favorite against Giga Chikadze, and he lost all of these fights, and now he's coming back after 4 wins in some subpar promotion. Very hard to bet him, and to expect that he's gonna go for this takedown and turn into this mighty wrestler I think is a stretch. I feeling actually great that what is Dana right now is like -150,
Minus
right?
150. Yeah, the line
I mean,
is closing.
it's solid. It's closing. I mean, it's great. If you're on the Dana side like myself, I think it's a great opportunity and a great spot to bet him. And for Brandon Davis, I think it's a little bit tough. It's 135. He's gonna be a little bit bigger than Dana, but he's not bigger by much. I looked the weigh-ins, and so I just don't know. His path to victory is very limited. He cannot knock out Dana. He's not going to submit him. And standing wise, in every single metric, he Dana outshines him and outperforms him. So how are you gonna bet Davis? Plus, on top of that, if you're just a capper, you're looking into historically of the wins that he has. It's a very, very tough spot to bet Davis, and I understand. Actually, I don't. But if you bet him, I mean, all I can say is good luck.
Well, thank you, because I am on the Brandon Davis side here. I do have a unit and a half on him at that plus 149 line. I do think the experience that he brings to the table, although he has a very lackluster record that he brings to the table here, you got to look at his strength of schedule that he's been going up against, and the losses that he's had inside the UFC. Tough losses, right? Zabit Magomedsharipov. You got the Kyle Bochniak one was a very interesting one considering how that fight went. It could play out similar to that one, but Crash Bochniak is very aggressive, very much moves forward and tries to really push the pace, almost like an Ariane Carnelossi type of character, where he just tries to put the pressure on his opponents. And I don't think that Davis was able to keep up with that. My disagreement here is going to come with Davis being more serviceable in the striking than people are giving him credit for. I don't think Batgerel will be able to knock him out here. I do think he's a better striker, don't get me wrong, and I do think he'll have the better moments on the feet here. But I think the length and the jiu-jitsu and wrestling is going to be the ultimate factor here for Brandon Davis. I do think he's going to be able to either push up Batgerel up against the cage, drag him to the ground, and get his jiu-jitsu going. We saw in the 3rd round of the Hali Alatang fight, albeit Alatang is slightly better wrestler than what Davis brings to the table here. But as soon as he got him to the ground or into those clinch and grappling situations, absolutely roughed up Batgerel. Now, Batgerel minus 130 favorite going into his fight against Guido Canetti. Nearly a pick'em, closer to a pick'em fight there. And then we saw him go out there and get the knockout, and all of a sudden off to the races. Big favorite against Kevin Natividad, and now was a bigger favorite against Brandon Davis until that Brandon Davis money started to come in. So it's more so fading a little bit of the hype that might be on the Dana Batgerel side against a very experienced and legitimate competitor here, in my opinion, with Brandon Davis. I think Brandon Davis is like one of the best gatekeepers out there. He's going to be that guy that's going to keep these guys from the top 15. And will Dana be able to crack the top 15? He's going to have to get past a guy like Brandon Davis to do so. And I don't think he's going to be able to do so. I think once Davis wraps him up here, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Batgerel to really get anything going. Last thing I'll say about Batgerel, one of the last guys kind of left at Jackson Wink. It really is hilarious, the downfall of that gym over there. They used to have pretty much everybody at the gym, but since John Jones has been having his issues, seems like a lot of people are leaving. And now the only real people left there are like, Steve Garcia, who fought last week. Obviously, huge mismatch there against Charlie Ontiveros. He even almost got finished himself in that first round. Luckily, he was able to survive and come back in that second round. And then, Khalid Murtazaliev, a Russian that's out of there, lost in Bellator a couple of weeks ago. Jones, Holm, like there's not much there left. And Dana Batgerel is the next guy waving the flag for Jackson Wink. And I just don't think that they truly have it. I know Brandon Davis is out of Mississippi, and one of his main training partners is Hick Diaz. What's his name? Jason Knight. That's kind of one of the main guys that he's rolling with. But one thing that we've really seen from Davis, in my opinion, very good jiu-jitsu, decent enough wrestling. I think it's going to be good enough for him to be able to drag this fight to the ground and either lock up a submission. That's one prop that I was kind of looking at here. Let me just see what it's currently sitting at. Davis by submission is plus 735, plus 1,000 if you look at certain spots. I don't think that's a bad spot here, considering I do expect him to have a massive grappling advantage once this fight does hit the mat. So, yeah, I'm on the Davis side. We got Tajik on the other side here. And again, if you are on the Batgerel side, you are the benefit of some solid line movement, and you should be getting a way better price now. And if you liked him before, got to pull the trigger now, I think. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got short notice Lupita Godinez going up against Luana Carolina. Now Godinez coming up a weight class and taking this fight on a 7-day turnaround, the quickest in modern UFC history. And I believe that this is a great matchup for her to do so. I am not a big believer on Luana Carolina. I was about to eat all the chalk on Sijara Eubanks when they originally matched up there because I thought the skill difference was massive. I don't think Luana has much off of her back. It looks like she's a little offensive if you watch some of her fights, especially the Poliana Botelho fight, but there's not much substance to it. It's in my opinion, it's more for show than anything. And I think a girl like Godinez, if she does get Carolina to the ground, she will be more than safe on top. I think that's her best way to win this fight, especially with the size discrepancy we're going to get here. The way Carolina wins fights is staying at distance, picking her opponents from distance, and that's kind of her game. It's Muay Thai. It's stay at distance and just let your strikes go. Whereas Godinez, even in her prior fights, even at 115 pounds, she's usually the shorter woman. She has to crash forward. She has to close the distance to get her strikes off. But in this particular situation, I think that that's not going to be enough for her. She's going to have to close the distance, land some takedowns, and do some work from on top. And I think she's going to be able to do so. Now, I did slightly fade Godinez last time around. I took a half-unit shot on Juarez, as I thought Juarez was in the striking realm, I thought she would be able to hold her own. But then Godinez is like, why would I strike with this woman? Let me just take this woman down. So I think it's the same situation here. She has to go out there, take Luana Carolina down. And will she be able to get a finish? I'm not 100% sure. I was certain that Eubanks was going to get a finish because she is a tremendous black belt, in my opinion. Probably one of the best black belts in that division. But Godinez, not on that level yet. So could she grind her out? I think so. I think that this is a prime spot for her to go out there and do that. Personally, I thought she was going to open up as a minus 300, minus 400 favorite because there's always that love on Godinez. There's just a crazy public love out there for her. But, she opened up at minus 285 and now she's roughly around minus 210, minus 225. So it seems like there's money coming in on Carolina. The only reason I can think as to why is she's the bigger woman. She's the one preparing for the state. And, it's going to be tough for Godinez to possibly take a bigger woman down. I don't think that's the case. I'm not a big fan of Carolina. Don't think she has many skills, to be honest. And she's going to beat girls like Priscilla Cachoeira, but it's not going to get better for her past that. How do you feel about this matchup, brother?
I think if it was on a decent amount, notice and with the full camp, Lupi would have been bettable, and we would eat the chalk, and it would be delicious. But under these circumstances, it's very hard, right? Like it's a 7-day notice. I mean, if she beats Luana, she might as well just call out Khamzat Chimaev after that, right? Like it's just like it's it's very tough, but it's tough to bet her. It's really tough. She's heavily undersized, right? It's a very short notice, and if I just don't know if she will be able to manipulate Luana the way she wants in the grappling department, right? Last week I picked her actually to win by Lupita by submission, and she did. I think it was her first submission. I think it was a good pick, but this time it's I kind of like I'm very perplexed, right? Because the way Poliana Botelho went into the full mount on her, it was just very disturbing, right? And on Luana Carolina, and Botelho is a subpar grappler, right? Ariana Lipski knee barred her. I mean, this is just. So what can Lupi do? I think Lupi can take her down. That's her path to victory. Standing up is going to be a little bit tough. More powerful shots. If Luana keeps the good distance, I think she's durable, and I think she can throw the punches. Throw them jabs. It's probably going to be a little bit closer given the circumstances, but I think I'm going to agree with you. I think Lupi. I see more that this fight can go to a decision than a submission. But then again, Botelho and Lipski fights, are a good indication and good markers for somebody who's betting on Lupi by submission and a good guide, in making that decision. I don't blame you. If you betting on Lupi by submission, I mean, good for you. Go do it. I think she wins by decision, and more closer decision than we probably think. Is going to be something like 29-28 unanimous, but a bit closer fight than we expect.
Godinez by decision, currently sitting at plus 160. Godinez by sub, plus 390 or plus 500, depending on where you're looking at. So,
Sheesh. That's one of them Lambo bets that narco cops like. So yeah, here we go.
there you go.
Here we
All
go.
right, let's move on to the next fight here, and I'll let you take the lead. We got Danny Roberts going up against Ramazan Emeev. In terms of odds, we are currently looking at minus 320 for Emeev, plus 290 on Danny Roberts. How do you feel about this matchup, brother?
Well, I mean, Emeev will be my pick, but he's unbettable. I think he's more complete now, and he's more complete because of the Rocco Martin fight, right? He tried to take Rocco Martin down nine times, and then he failed. And then after that, I think he realized I can't just rely on precision strikes, and low volume, and just because it's going to be very close for me. So I have to mix things up and be more effective in the wrestling department, right? I think he did good work there. His fights with Stolce, with Zawada, I think he garnered like 4 takedowns in each. So we know now that he's gonna mix up his game, and I think it's very important, important aspect of this matchup. Danny Roberts is coming off of the long layoff. I don't see much path of the victory, honestly. I mean, to him, I mean, he's striking. I think is very close. I think they're very close striking wise with Ramazan, but just simply because Ramazan has more ways to victory, I think it makes it for a much easier pick. I think he's gonna take him down. He's gonna mix up the strikes and takedowns, and comfortably take this one to a decision.
Yeah, I'm on the Emeev side here as well, and I'm kind of surprised that the line is not wider at this point in time. And I know a lot of times Ramazan Emeev is usually that heavy favorite, right? Minus 400, minus 500 is what we're used to seeing. So I'm kind of surprised that the line is not as wide this time around. He's on a two fight winning streak, like you said. 4 takedowns in both of those last 2 fights. The Rocco Martin fight seemed to be a little bit of a wake up call for him, especially with the amount of success that Rocco Martin was having with that calf kick, kind of rendering him defenseless, especially in the striking realm. And then I think that really took off the zest of those 9 takedown attempts that he was trying to go out there and do. Like me and you both realized the amount of damage a calf kick can do, and when that calf kick really started to show itself inside the UFC, Rocco Martin was one of those guys that was really taking advantage of it. I thought his performance against Ramazan Emeev was one of the best indications and presentations of how to use a calf kick effectively. And then, yeah, you're right. He started to go more so for the takedowns in his last 2 fights, because before it seemed like he was fighting to the level of his competition, right? Even though he was a minus 500 favorite, a lot of his fights were way sweatier than they should have been, because low output, waiting for more accuracy than actual volume. And that kind of really made it a lot closer for him in those earlier fights. But here now against Stolze, against Zavada, get those takedowns, get that top control, and get to work. And I think that 29% takedown accuracy on his UFC stats page. Obviously, a lot of that from the Rocco Martin fight. If people want to kind of take that statistic and say, how is he going to get Danny Roberts down, right? Roberts 53% takedown defense. You got Claudio Silva, 23% takedown accuracy, landing 3 takedowns on Danny Roberts. And if me and you are betting men, Tajikbay, I feel like Ramazan Emeev has a better wrestling game than what Claudio Silva would have brought to the table in that specific fight, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, he does, and I think there's a bit of a recency bias, right? Because the way his fight went with Ramazan Emeev's fight went with Zawada was a little bit disturbing, right? It was closer fight than people anticipate. With Stolce also kind of it was close, and so Danny Roberts, he stopped Zelim Imadaev, and so people are like,
That's probably what it is. Yeah.
it's kind of
Not
this
going to
is what
rush it.
people are like, another Russian is gonna go
Yeah.
through him, but it's not that easy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and Zelim was just on this path of losing fights. Zelim was just never
Yeah.
ready. He was never mentally ready for this challenge, right? It's one of they rushed him too fast. That's part of the things that I want to make this point, if I may. When it comes to management, right? A lot of people, like, let's say, when Jordan Wright pulled out of people look at Wright, and they talk about him being like beating crashing cans, beating people with the 0 records. What when people look at that, that's what they see. When I look at that, as an analyst, to me, it's like he has a good management.
Yeah.
He has a good, think about it.
No,
He
you're
runs
right.
through every fight he gets is a winnable fight for him. You have to have a really good manager in order to make those fights so that they set it up for you. You have to be, a elite level type of manager to get this kind of setups. And they give him really winnable fights if you go
No,
through his record. So yeah, so think about it that way. You may think about it that he, and the same thing, but it's the opposite of what happened with Imadeev. They rushed him, kid. You ready? UFC, let's go. And UFC is tough for anybody, and so you need to be ready. So
no,
here we are.
absolutely. There's a lot of guys that I kind of know on the regional scene that got that padded type of approach to getting big fights, and then when they got the big fights, they absolutely crumbled because they weren't ready for that type of competition. And that's possibly what we could see with Jordan Wright, but unfortunately, again, we're not going to be able to see him this weekend. In regards to this specific matchup, I am on Ramazan pretty heavily as well. The only way I think Roberts wins this fight is if he's able to stuff takedowns, because technically speaking, he's probably the better striker. Has some good volume, has some good output, probably more output than what Emeev brings to the table. But by the looks of it, Roberts has pretty much just been training over there in Europe. I know he's been tied over to Sanford MMA for a couple training camps, but he hasn't been over there for this training camp specifically. And then you're really going to need those types of wrestling approaches and wrestling looks that you're going to get from guys at Sanford compared to what he's going to be getting over there in Europe. And I feel like he's just not going to be ready for what Ramazan brings here. Ramazan very safe on the feet. Again, low output, but safe. He hasn't succumbed to a knockdown inside the UFC. He got knocked out once in the regional scene and managed to avenge that loss very quickly right after. In his next fight, taps the guy out in the first round. And I feel as though if Ramazan can't go out there and finish a guy like Danny Roberts, he's more than likely not finishing anybody higher up on the ladder, because I feel like this is a fight he can finish, whether it's the power that I believe he does have in his hands, if he can actually let it go and find that chin, or his submission game on the ground. Because, although we don't see it often, it seems like he has a bit of a submission game, but it seems like when he gets these guys to the ground, it's more so to control rather than to actually find a submission or find a finish. And even if he goes out there and controls this guy, I'm fine with that too. I think that this is an Emeev fight pretty much from the jump here. The only way I see Roberts winning this fight personally, if he stuffs takedowns or if he knocks out Emeev. And again, by all indications, it seems like Emeev has a pretty rock solid chin here. So I don't think that's too much to worry about. So yeah, I like Emeev. Obviously, heavy juice on him now as money has poured on him throughout the week. I remember seeing him roughly around minus 220, minus 230. Now he's reaching up to the minus 300 range. So say what you want about the juice there. Again, I don't mind taking juice. You guys know me. I think he's worth a little bit of the juice in this spot. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Andrew Sanchez going up against Bruno Silva. I'll kick things off here. In terms of odds, we got minus 155 on Bruno Silva, plus 135 the return on Andrew Sanchez. You can find plus 140-ish at a couple of spots as well. I'm actually on the Andrew Sanchez side here. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I feel as though he should be the side here, especially at these dog odds. Now, the confusion that's a lot of people seem to have is that Andrew Sanchez is chinny. I don't think he's that chinny. I think it's more so his exhaustion that it comes to in that third round, which is when more often than not that he gets finished, right? The Ryan James fight, the Mahmoud Murdoch fight. The Mahmoud Murdoch fight, he went striking with him for 15, for 2.5 rounds before he got knocked out. And it was due to the exhaustion, in my opinion. He tried going for takedowns. He was unsuccessful in doing so, as Murdoch has a decent wrestling background himself, and he was able to stuff those takedowns. Whereas here, Bruno Silva, takedown defense looks a little bit sketchy. You know what I mean? A lot of people were backing Wellington Turman last time around, assuming that he would be able to get the fight to the ground and get his jiu-jitsu going. It was a little bit more difficult for him to ground that fight. He did ultimately have to jump on the back of Bruno Silva to try to get something going, but just couldn't get anything going. Whereas Andrew Sanchez, I think his wrestling game is 10 times better than what Wellington Turman brought to the table, and I think he should be able to ground this fight over and over again. Then comes into the question, how is he going to look in that third round against a heavy hitter like Bruno Silva, who has shown that he can withstand grapple fucking for 2, 3, 4 rounds and come back at the end and still knock you out. So I think the best way to approach this is, one, I'd be surprised if Andrew Sanchez finishes Bruno Silva. So I'd take Andrew Sanchez by decision to get the most juice out of that squeeze. And then just for assurance, let's go ahead and take that Bruno Silva round 3 just for assurance, right? Bruno Silva round 3 is currently plus 925, plus 1,000, depending on the spots that you're looking at. I think that's the best way to play this fight, honestly. If you're taking the Bruno Silva money line, I think you're leaving money on the table, because I truly think his only way of winning this fight is by knockout. I mean, that's in my opinion, that's the only way that he wins this fight. Whereas Andrew Sanchez, I think he will be able to nullify that knockout power early, land the takedowns, grind this one out, and then take home a decision victory, as long as he doesn't get knocked the fuck out in that third round. Is my analysis on this quite on par with how you're seeing this fight go down, or how do you see this one going down, buddy?
No, absolutely. I see it in a lot of ways, very very similar. My pick is Andrew Sanchez here. I want to give insight also, like when it comes to this. When it comes to camps, right? Like, a lot of times, you see cappers and analysts talk about the camps. They say he went there and he's going to be doing great and stuff like that. So I think when it comes to Andrew Sanchez, he had identity crisis. He couldn't find out in himself who he was. Is he a wrestler? Is he trying to be a stand-up fighter, right? I think Khabib, like in that sense, made a good statement, right? He said, stick to your roots, stick to what you're good at, right? And what we're seeing right now is Andrew Sanchez going back to going to the AKA, is that he's trying to get that wrestling back. So when you're looking into this camp narrative, the reason why I bring it up, every time somebody goes somewhere, it's not it gets somehow the name stands out more so than the gym brings. So when somebody goes to AKA, anticipate somebody like Andrew Sanchez trying to work on his on his wrestling and grappling. When somebody goes to Factory X, they're probably focusing more a little bit on the stand up, and that's what they can get out of it. Or you can go to the Firas Zahavi's gym and try to become boring fighter, right? So it's like really like what you're trying to do, right? What you're trying to be in life, right? This is your identity, right? And so when it comes to Andrew Sanchez, I think he's trying to find himself again, rediscover himself, the wrestler he is, the BJJ guy he is, and he's a solid one at that. I think he has a chance to put to put Bruno Silva in a lot of trouble. And for Silva, we don't know much. Thurman tried to take him down. This fight is absolutely, his win, his first and the win in the UFC gives us absolutely nothing. It tells me nothing that I have not known. Does he have a KO power? Yes, he does. Have I known that before? Yes, I do. Yes, I did know that. So what else am I supposed to know? Andrew Sanchez, I think you rightly mentioned, is durable. And the reason why he would lose in those third round is because he would be exhausted by this time. So cardio is a big issue for him, and I think he's trying to find this balance, right? How do I become a wrestler, a grappler? Impose my will, impose my game, and at the same time not to get gassed out. And what's the better place than AKA to discover that? I think, in my opinion, Andrew Sanchez stops Bruno Silva. I think it's gonna be TKO. I don't know, for some reason I don't see a submission here. But Bruno Silva is obviously a great, tremendous DK play. Go ahead, have at it. Pick him. I think he has that first round upside. Obviously, will be popular there. But for betting purposes, I like Andrew Sanchez, and I feel like he can get that TKO. Just take him down. Just take his back, stretch him out, and just pound him out, and get that TKO victory somewhere around the second or third round.
Yeah, I really think that people just continuously are blinded by, Andrew Sanchez being chinny or Andrew Sanchez having bad cardio, ultimately leading to his demise, right? I think people need to fix that up because, again, even in those fights where he's like getting knocked out later in these fights, it's again, it's just pure exhaustion. It's literally pure exhaustion. The guy's huffing and puffing. And I remember back in the day, Andrew Sanchez always being a heavy favorite against him, no matter who he went up against, because of the potential people saw in him. But now we see the chink in his armor is that cardio. But if he can shore that up, I think that this is a solid spot for him to go out there and get that win.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to the main card now. I do quickly want to remind you guys, we got about 175 people in the live chat right now. Shout out to everybody in here. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe. And I do have Tajik's a Twitter page linked in the description below. So if you guys do enjoy what you guys are hearing from him, please do give him a follow because he is very entertaining just on the timeline, just as he is here with his beautiful face on this stream. All right, let's move on to the main card here. We got Ludovic Klein going up against Nate Landwehr. In terms of odds, obviously heavy chalk here on Ludovic Klein, who initially opened around that minus 265 range. Now up to minus 370, plus 330 is the return here on Ludovic Klein. I'll actually let you kick this one off, Tajik. How are you feeling about this matchup?
I feel great. Actually, I think this fight is gonna be a banger. I think it's gonna be a great fight. Um, I'll start perhaps with Nate Landwehr. I think with him, the issue always has been his ego. He came from this M1 circuit, beating everybody up, and he would go through every punches. You throw kitchen sink at him, he laughs, right? It's just he felt invincible, absolutely. And then he comes to UFC, and he got really humbled there, right? Like his first fight, he gets KO'd, and then gets his pride back in the second fight and then gets KO'd again. I think what he has to become in this fight, like, he has to be humble, right? He's a good UFC level athlete. What he needs to do is to pick his hands up, and just breathe and calm down. If you're in this fight camp, just tell him, relax, try to settle, don't be that guy who just run through the punches. We know that it doesn't work, and so for Klein, I was so not impressed with Ludovic in his fight against Trizano. It's very hard for me to find the reason, especially at these odds, how would anybody bet Ludovic Klein? I mean, what's the rationale here? Why would you bet him? And in Trizano fight, is if anything it showed us is that if you keep him at bay, if you keep him with the jabs, and then impose your game, like push the pace yourself, right, to go yourself. I think it's possible, and Landwehr can do that, right? If he controls himself, it pushes forward. I think he knows, I think he can impose his will on Klein, and although a lot of people pick Klein, I think in this case, I think Landwehr is going to give him a competitive fight, and I actually see this fight going to a decision, um, and um, and I think Landwehr has an absolute chance of beating Klein in this fight. I actually pick him to win here by decision.
Seems like the two plays that were kind of on here. Well, you were on Klein, or sorry, on Emeev as well, but you didn't agree with the line there. I kind of agree with the minus 300 to minus 350-ish range for Klein in this certain situation, given the way that we've been seeing Nate Landwehr in his last couple of fights. Now, I'll lay it out for you here in terms of why I think he's more than willing or more than deserving of that line here. The Mike Trizano fight specifically, that's obviously the last fight that we have for Klein here. Trizano, we gotta remember that Trizano is much better striker, way more discipline, way more tools in his skill set with the striking realm than what Nate Landwehr is going to bring to the table here. Landwehr has never been that Trizano type of striker to stay at range, kind of use his jab and use his kicks to kind of corral Ludovic Klein into situations that he wanted him in, which is what Trizano exactly was successful with doing. And even then, the fight was pretty close. I mean, I have people on both sides saying the fight should have been Klein's, the fight should have been Trizano's. I was on the Trizano side, so I was happy to get the decision there. But in this specific fight, I don't expect Nate Landwehr to, cut off the cage. He's following guys the entire time. He's not cutting off the cage. He's following guys. And in my opinion, I think he's going to follow himself right onto a big punch, right onto a big head kick, a knee, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I think even if this fight does go to a decision, it's going to be hard to overlook the amount of damaging strikes that are going to be dished out from the Klein side towards Landwehr. Landwehr might beat him on output, but I think the more damaging strikes are going to come from the Klein side. He might even drop him a couple times. Something that, Landwehr has been dropped on the regional scene as well, even when he's beating these Russian guys. And I think that's the difference here. The big difference, and I think that it's almost glaring at this point in time. He took a shit ton of damage in the M1 scene and was able to keep chugging forward and moving forward. But once he comes to the UFC and starts getting hit and starts getting dropped and starts getting finished, leads you to believe that he might have been one of those guys that was affected by the USADA policy that he had to adhere to once coming over to the North American scene. And we saw firsthand what steroids can specifically do to a guy in Bigfoot Silva versus Mark Hunt. If you guys remember those fights, Bigfoot Silva goes into a 5-round war with Mark Hunt, eating all the shots from Mark Hunt and chugging for a we get a draw. They match up with each other a couple fights later after Bigfoot Silva popped in that fight. And we get him knocked out in the first round. Like that's kind of what happens. Like you see the diminishing return for guys that are on steroids and then come back and are not. They're just not able to deal with the damage that's being dished out to them. And I feel like Nate is one of those, like, just even look at his personality. He seems like a guy that will take steroids, right? Let's be honest. To be successful in your trade and you're not getting tested for it, this guy more than likely was taking something when he was over there in Russia. Not saying the Russian guys weren't taking anything either. Of course, they were taking something too. But over here, the USADA side of things, I don't think that his durability is going to benefit from the damage that is coming his way. And Klein, 16 out of his 17 victories, all by finish. The guy is a big finisher, big power in his shots. And I feel like if all these guys, Herbert Burns and Julian Rosa, if they're fighting the button on Nate Landwehr, I truly expect Klein to do so as well. The one other benefit or positive I'll give on the late Nate Landwehr side is had some decent wrestling, right? We did see Darren Elkin struggle to kind of get him to the ground. I think Ludovic Klein showed in the Mike Trizano fight. He showed some good fight IQ in that fight where he didn't really just get stuck in a gunfight. He went for takedowns at times. And although he didn't do much with it, it did bail him out of bad positions at times. And I feel like he might be able to lean on that here, but deal with a little bit of resistance from Landwehr in terms of trying to get him to the ground. I ultimately think it's going to be that bull rushing style of Nate Landwehr that's going to get him knocked out once again. Can't be doing that against a guy like Klein. And then even if these guys stay at range and try to fight at a distance range, I think that the Klein power and the precision from his strikes will be too much for Nate Landwehr to handle. Sure, the output will be great from Landwehr, but at a certain point, he's going to get countered, he's going to get touched, he's going to get put on his butt, and I think he's going to get knocked out. So you can take Klein KO, which I think was around even money, which is probably his best path to victory. Personally, I chucked him into a parlay when he was around that minus 303 range because I thought he was a perfect spot to do so. Anything you want to add to this specific matchup?
Yeah, just to close it, with Klein, at minus 310, I just hope for one thing. I just hope this is not going to be the situation where like we had with Mirko Krokop, right? When he came from Pride, one leg cemetery, one leg this, one like that. He's a finisher, right? We know he's a finisher, but we also know that the fights at the UFC are a different level and they're much closer, right? I don't want Landwehr to be underlooked in the sense. I think right now at current odds, if you're a capper, regardless of the result, even if tomorrow, Klein goes in and just rams, through Landwehr, however way he wants. Landwehr, I think at plus 320 is actually a great value bet. Unfortunately, a lot of times, capper are judged based on the outcomes, right? Which is kind of like, well, why wouldn't they? Isn't that how they're supposed to be? No. If you're a value capper, you should be seeing, if you're seeing his chances, of winning at about, 45% or 40%, right? Klein deserved favorite. There's no reason to deny that. He is a deserved favorite. But if you cap, Landwehr at 45 and they're giving you, like 70% that he's going to lose, it's just like you see the value there, right? He has a chance, and I think he has a decent chance. And so, but yeah, like I agree with you absolutely. I mean, Klein can definitely has that upside to stop Landwehr, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's keep this train moving on because we got 4 more fights to go over. And this one I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on. We got Manon Fiorot going up against Mayra Bueno Silva. And in terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 240 for a Fiorot and plus 210, plus 220 on Mayra Bueno Silva. I'll start off this breakdown. I initially, when this fight was announced and I saw the odds, I thought I was going to be on the Bueno Silva side. But then when you watch some of her fights, man, she makes it a little bit difficult to bet on her in terms of going for literally no takedowns in her UFC career. She has no desire to do so. She wants to go out there. She wants to outstrike her opponent. And more often than not, she's the better striker. So it makes sense. But in this situation against Manon Fiorot, is she going to be the better striker? Probably not, right? Like, she has some good leg kicks. She has some good combinations and all. No head movement. Fiorot is just going to be waiting to pinpoint, try to drop her in this situation. But I think that the somewhat unknowns of Fiorot's ground game at this level kind of keep me away from playing her at that minus 240 line. I do believe she should be the favorite. Obviously, she has a lot of hype on her at this point in time. And I do think that she'll crack the top 10 of this division, given the skill set that she has. But there are some questions that I want answered. Like, we did see her grappling get challenged in her first fight, which was her first ever loss against Leah McCourt, Bellator's Leah McCourt. And McCourt was able to land takedown after takedown. And although Fiorot was able to get back to her feet, she just could not stop the takedown. And that's what ultimately the judges were able to score. Now, she could have made improvements since then. Obviously, she's made improvements since then. But this is the best fighter she's going up since then, right? Victoria Leonardo, really? Like, really? Come on. Tabitha Ricci, great fighter, played the worst game plan possible, didn't even go for takedowns, did nothing, stayed at range, up a weight class as well on short notice. But this is the first fight, full training camp, a girl that can present threats in the striking realm and the grappling realm, the jiu-jitsu realm as well. So I do think that Bueno Silva is live here. It's just my concern of what her fight IQ is like. Is she going to be smart enough to go out there and try to go for the takedowns? Or is she going to try to swing her big dick around and think she's the better striker and try to go out there and outstrike a girl like Manon Fiorot? That would be a very grave mistake, in my opinion, for her to go out there and do something like that. Which is why it's keeping me off from both sides here. The spot that I have a little bit of a intrigue to take a shot at is Mayra Bueno by submission around plus 675. That would probably be the only little sprinkle that I take in this fight. But I do think that Bueno Silva will go out there, outstrike her. Hopefully we see the improvements that she should have been making in her takedown defense. But I want to see that with my eyes first before I go out there and place any money on her. So I am taking her to win this fight. I think she outstrikes Bueno Silva. Say what you want about Bueno Silva striking. I do think that she's durable. So I do think she'll be able to take some damage here. I could see this fight going later. And I do think that If we do see Bueno Silva go out there and shoot takedowns, we might see a little bit more of a conservative Fiorot in terms of not wanting to overextend on her strikes in the threat of possibly getting taken down in a counter. So I'm going to take Fiorot by decision in this spot. I might have her in a couple degenerate parlays just because I do think she ends up winning this fight, but I just want to make sure and see it with my eyes first that she's fighting legitimate competition that are giving her legitimate threats, and she can come back from adversity and beat those girls. And this is the perfect test for her to do so. So I'm not super confident on the Fiorot side. I am picking her to win, picking her by decision. How do you see this one going down, Mr. Goat?
Yeah, Manpreet, when I look at Manon Fiorot, it's interesting to me. She reminds me of a serial gun in a lot of ways. This wide stance. She goes out and her precision and her timing is so spot on. She's kind of like if serial gun and good old days Conor McGregor mixed together, right? Like I think her technique is spot on. Her timing is absolutely amazing. And yet I still think it doesn't justify the odds, right? I mean, there is no way she can be this much of a favorite against Buena Silva, because Myra is a decent competitor. We've seen her doing very well on the UFC scene. Just in general, right? I mean, I think this fight was Montana De La Rosa was great. It was a close fight. Then she submits Mara Romero Barella. I think Marina Moroz actually outclassed her, but the level of the competition that cannot be denied, right? The way she fights, I think it's just she fought at just a higher level competition. And I think to your point, like you said, finding baby sharks, and it's a different level. But at the same time, what it also should tell you, right? They're building her up. They're giving her winnable fights. They're getting her ready. And I think she's a deserved favorite, but not at these odds. I think, I think Myra, for me, I think wins. If they fought like 10 times, she probably wins 4, and Fiora wins 6. And if I'm trying to find the value side here, so for me, it's going to be Myra Bueno Silva. Under these odds, Manon Fiorot is unbettable. You can sprinkle here and there a little bit, but it's also hard to see, Myra taking Manon down. She might clinch with her. I think that will be her game plan. I think she'll rush in, throw a few strikes and then try to clinch with her, trying to get Manon out of her element, right? And if it goes past the first round, then we're gonna have a fight. We have to see what Manon is truly made of. I think it's like you said. I think you made a great point. It's a great test to find out, is Manon Fiorot legit. So I'm not ready to give that answer. I think it's to be determined, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick Myra Bueno Silva to take this one by decision.
Yeah, it's almost like the other women's fight that's on this card, right? Let's sit back. Let's see if Nunes is, what she is, or let's see what Fiorot actually brings to the table when she actually goes up against somebody that's not Victoria Leonardo or
No,
somebody that's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I really like your point. This is not a race. This is marathon, right? Let's find out what these fighters are before we put our money in a good position, right? I think it's a tremendous point. And for Fiorot and for Nunes, we just don't know yet, but we will find out. I think it's a great point.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let's move on to the third last fight here. We got Jim Miller taking on Eric Gonzalez. If I'm not mistaken, Gonzalez coming in on short notice here. But regardless, first fight for him. This is the widest discrepancy we've had in terms of UFC experience, where we have Jim Miller coming in for his 38th UFC fight compared to the debut of Eric Gonzalez in this fight. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 245 for A10 Jim Miller and plus 215, plus 225 for Eric Gonzalez. Let me just say it out flat. I'm not impressed with what I've been seeing from Eric Gonzalez. He's gone up against 2 UFC guys or former UFC fighters, and Humberto Bandone comes up short in that fight via decision. Goes up against Rafa Garcia, comes up short in that fight via decision. But then in between those fights, he's putting together a decent record, 3, 4, 5 fight winning streak. But then once he takes that level up in competition, he starts to falter. Now, say what you want about Jim Miller. 37, 38 years old, maybe on the end of his rope. But, based on his press conference, I believe yesterday or the day before that, he goes, I have no intentions of retiring. I'm still fully invested in this game and I want to go out there and showcase that. And these are the types of fights he should go out there and win. I believe the last time he's actually won a fight by decision was down at or back in 2016. His last 4 fights, all first round victories over, up and coming guys, Roosevelt Roberts being one of them, where he was able to snatch on that armbar, if I'm not mistaken, and take home that victory as well. I'm expecting kind of the same thing here, where I think we're going to get a banshee out of Jim Miller here to go forward, try to land a takedown, which doesn't seem that hard against a guy like Eric Gonzalez. And I think he's going to get his jiu-jitsu going after that. I think we see another Jim Miller first round knockout here. I think Eric Gonzalez is just, or not knockout, but submission, sorry. I think Gonzalez is just a little bit too wild, puts himself in very bad positions, and you don't want to be doing that, especially against a guy like Jim Miller, who will take full advantage of that. Again, we truly saw that in the Roosevelt Roberts fight. One little slip up from Roberts and Jim Miller was on him, and I'm expecting the same thing here with Eric Gonzalez. My favorite play for this card, or this fight specifically, is the under 2.5, which is finally taking some actions. I saw it at plus 150 earlier this week. Now it's down to plus 120. I'm fully expecting violence in this fight, whether it's Jim Miller early or Eric Gonzalez late. As we do know, Jim Miller does tend to slow down later in his fights. And say what you want about Eric Gonzalez, his wild style does help him get some fighters out of there every now and then. And I do believe he'd be able to take over or take out a guy in Jim Miller who does slow down as much as he does in the third rounds. So once again, my favorite play for this is the under 2.5. I am ultimately taking Jim Miller in round one, which currently has odds of plus 325 or plus 500, depending on where you're looking at, or even Miller by sub, which is roughly around plus 180. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, we our opinions are similar in this fight. With Jim Miller, I have to say it, right? The best thing you need to know, I think, about Jim Miller is that 37 times this man has fought, and he missed weight 0 times. Never ever in his career
Yeah,
he missed weight. A true
big credit.
professional, regardless, right? He has Lyme disease, whatever he has, like Sun Tzu said, like the only thing that he didn't have is a bubonic plague. It's like shout out to Sun Tzu
I
if you're
love Sun
if
Tzu.
you're
That's my
here.
guy.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're looking into, I think Miller takes him down and submits him, chokes him out in the first round. Via rear naked choke. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it simple. I don't have much to say about his opponent. I taped him and it was just absolutely atrocious. Uh, so yeah, I'll take Jim Miller. I think it's a good bet. Like first round submission. What are the odds for the first round submissions for Jim Miller?
Specifically, the first round submission, I
Yeah, yeah,
believe,
yeah.
was in the 600s. Um, First round submission for Miller. Oh, it's not even up here.
I mean, if I'm a
As,
bookie, I'm
here it is.
removing that one.
Plus 750. Miller submission in round one.
Oh my God, this makes my job very easy. Like Tyron Woodley likes to say, bet. So
Exactly.
here we
I
go.
love it. I love it. All right, let's move on to the co-main event here. We got Andrei Arlovski, another veteran of the UFC, going up against Carlos Felipe, who I just found out today has a face tattoo that automatically makes him in the no bet zone for me. In terms of odds, pretty much pick him here. At 5 times, I'm seeing 107, minus 107 for Arlovski, minus 103 for Felipe, but it's pretty much a pick him at this spot. I'll actually let you kick this one off, Tajik. How do you feel about this matchup going off?
I have very limited interest in this fight, to be honest with you. It's just like betting wise, watching wise. It's just, but interesting about Arlovski. I know people were speculating about his, longevity and him being able to withstand, his competition. The regardless of his age. I think his secret weapon is his beard. Because it hides the chin. Like there is no way. You looked at the stare downs, like you saw it. Where this guy's chin is, I want to
No.
know. And if you're Felipe, you'll be guessing the entire fight. How do I find the chin? Like you're gonna throw it, boom, goes through the beard, like, and then you're like confused, right? I think it's a really puzzle. Like if you're his opponent, to how do you find his chin? Like you drop him, like okay, where do I hit now, right? Well, Carlos Felipe would be hard I don't see him, maybe KOing like viciously, Arlovski, but at the same time, I was initially on Arlovski, and then I taped them both a little bit. It's this fighting style of boxing with Carlos Felipe that he has, this thick Diaz style, right? He puts his hands in the air, like he just don't care, and then he just goes, right? He goes, and although he's being out volumed, he makes this look like he's winning this fight, and after the fight he jumps off the cage like he won this fight so unanimously, and it works, right? He has more flashy style than Arlovski, and Arlovski unfortunately doesn't have that. But there's a little bit of animosity in this fight, which I think is interesting, because Arlovski said, I'm going to teach him a lesson, or I'm going to go down. um that's an interesting statement. So we'll see how that goes. So my pick is gonna be Carlos Felipe. I'm not gonna bet him at the moment, but I think he's an interesting play. He's becoming more interesting play. I think by tomorrow I'll tweet some of my better picks with regards to him. But so far I think he wins it, and he wins it by decision.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the flip side, and that just is further attribution of this fight being a coin flip. I've seen and heard pretty much takes on both sides of this fight. I do end up on the Arlovski side here. One take in specifically that I was very much on board with, and it's something that John, shout out to MMA Fox, John Stargarian brought to the table as well, is the Philippe's most success normally comes when he's able to crash the pocket and exchange in the pocket with a lot of his opponents, whereas Arlovski seems to be playing it as safe as possible, playing on the outside and staying away from those pocket exchanges, and that's where he usually gets most of his damage or most of his output off. And that's kind of what I'm expecting it to be. It's kind of, again, I think we're going to see a couple of different fights throughout tomorrow night that look the same, where you have the bruiser, where you have the bull, and you have the matador. And I think in this situation we got the bull in Felipe, and then the matador in Arlovski. And I got to go with the veteran Arlovski here. The one thing I think that both me and you can agree upon, though, is that over 2.5, which is currently sitting at minus. Well, it's actually getting heavy chalk now, minus 225. Actually, I saw earlier in the week around minus 175, minus 180, but it seems like everybody's privy to the same side here. Is that these guys are more than likely going to go out there and bang for about 15 minutes, but we won't see a knockout, which is so weird to say, especially with Arlovski. And like you touched upon at the beginning of your breakdown, the man's beard is fucking amazing at this point in time to be able to keep him upright. Like 10-11 years ago we were writing him off and telling him to retire, and now here he is at the ripe age of 42 years old, going out there and dancing circles around some of these prospects on the up and up. So luckily for him, heavyweight is one of those divisions that you can actually have some longevity in, and luckily for him, again, his chin is holding up in certain situations so that he's not on a 7 or 8 fight losing streak of continuously getting knocked out. Obviously when he goes up against guys like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's going to get put out, or Francis Ngannou is going to get put out. But him going up against like Philippe Lins and Tanner Boser and even Carlos Felipe, who was finishing guys on the regional scene. But as me and you both know, once the level of competition starts to get up, it's harder and harder to put these guys away. And that's exactly what Carlos Felipe is learning from. So he's going to have to adjust his style to try to have a better style to go out there and beat these kinds of guys. It seems like he's getting into the flashy lifestyle as well. Got the blonde hair, got the fancy clothes and the face tat and all that stuff now. So he's really relishing the fruits of his labor at this point in time. But it's time to go out there and actually work. And you're going to have to work when you're going up against a veteran like Andrei Arlovski. So I am on the Arlovski side. I think he wins by decision. But the only play I'd make on this, even if it's a Hail Mary parlay, I'd only be placing over 2.5 in it, not a side. You had something to say, brother?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I think he should have had, Felipe should have had like his secret weapon of his own, and not secret, but went blonde right now. The blonde fighters right now are absolutely on a tear. So yeah, why not?
Exactly. Channel that inner blondness. Let's see how it ends up going for Mr. Carlos Felipe tomorrow night. All right, that brings us to our main event, and I can't believe I'm saying main event proceeding with these two names, but I do also want to take this time to remind the 200 live viewers that we currently have in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then show my guys Tajikbay some love as well, as you guys can go to the description of this video and click on his Twitter link so that you guys can go out there and follow him as well. One of those enigmas on Twitter that doesn't follow anybody either, but nobody gives a fuck either, because he is the one and true GOAT within our MMA community. Tajik, we got Aspen Ladd going up against Norma Dumont, minus 130 on the Aspen Ladd side of things, and plus 110 on Norma Dumont. I'll actually let you kick this one off, brother. How are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, before I break this down, I just want to, give a notice. If you follow me on Twitter, there is no unsubscribe button, there is no unfollow button. So just to let you know.
You're locked in.
Yes, you're locked. There you go. So, but yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward match. In this matchup, I do like Aspen Ladd. I prefer her. I think she's more lethal striker. And I think her takedown game is something that's going to be probably a deal breaker in this fight. With Norma Dumont, I still very hard times capping her. Like where does she truly stands? In the ranking and just in general as a fighter. I think Aspen Ladd is a more complete fighter. But at the same time, her round one performances are snooze fests. Like she's just not there in the first round. She wakes up in the round second and third. So in my prior appearances, I did say that if it was a 3-round fight, probably Aspen Ladd would have been an underdog, and Norma Dumont would be Norma Dumont should have been a higher favorite. I think she had a better chance to win the 3-round fight. But in a 5-round fight, I think Aspen Ladd has to be the favorite. And I think I give her an advantage. They will be cautious, right? I think a couple of first and second round. I don't think they're going to engage much. But when Aspen Ladd gets in the groove, I think she's very unstoppable. The way she dominates her opponents is pretty astounding. Like Yana Kunitskaya fight is a great example. I mean, she goes in 2 rounds, she just does absolutely nothing. She was lying like Nick Diaz versus Anderson Silva. Like it's just like there's nothing going on, and then her coaches come in. It's like you have to finish, and she does, right? And what does that tell you? It tells you 2 things: that she has a great KO power and that she listens to her coaches. And so 145, she has troubled, with the 135. So now she's going 145. I think Norma Dumont also had the weight issues, which she was forced to go up. So I think in a lot of ways, it's not like Dumont is bigger here and we have this weight advantage or size advantage in general. I think Ladd is a safe pick here, and I think it's going to be one of the bets that I'm going to propose. Just betting Ladd straight. I see her as a good betting material in this fight.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Dumont side here, but with no bet. Like you kind of alluded to, there is still a little bit of question marks regarding what Dumont brings to the table here. I thought it was the hardest to cap her, like leading up to the Ashley Evans Smith fight, and I saw a lot of blind bets on the Ashley Evans Smith side because we just didn't know much about Norma Dumont. People seeing plus money on Ashley Evans Smith, and they just automatically better. But then once we saw Ashley was not able to really secure takedowns or really get her game going, she was getting touched up on the feet. And that's probably what could happen here as well if Aspen Ladd is not able to secure takedowns. And in my opinion, from the tape that I read, it seemed like a lot of Aspen Ladd's takedowns come from those body lock takedowns. Like it's like get the double underhooks and muscle your opponent to the ground. Try to just be the stronger person and just muscle this to the ground. And I'm interested to see, although at the weigh-ins it looks like Ladd and Dumont are almost the same size, it's more so that Dumont seems a little bit thicker to me, at least to me personally. So I'm interested to see if that's going to play into this. And again, it could play and help her for a couple rounds. But the fact that this is 5 rounds, in my opinion, it does obviously favor Ladd, but she's going to have to win at least 3 of those 5 rounds. We're going to have to see Dumont's pace and her activity and her takedown defense significantly diminish in rounds 3 to assure that Ladd is going to be able to get this victory. Although Ladd could potentially win one of the first 2 rounds as well if she is successful in getting the takedown, but it's just too many big ifs for me. For me, the striking is a big difference here. I think that Dumont is the much better striker. Ladd shows weird things in terms of kind of moving forward and having this weird style where she has her hands all the way up into her face and kind of just throwing combinations out there. But it seems like there's nothing on those shots. It just seems like she's throwing them out there to try to stay active. And when she's going to be getting countered here by Dumont by the much heavier strikes, I think she's going to start to wilt and she might start to break. But she'll always have that ace in her pocket, which is going to be the takedowns and the grappling. But I just don't know how effective it's truly going to be once this fight gets going. I know a lot of people want to kind of go to that Felicia Spencer fight for Norma Dumont, saying, "Oh, look at the last minute. Should even work to get back up or anything like that." For me, it was a couple of things. It's whether it could have been Norma knew she was already up 2 rounds. She didn't want to put herself into too much danger by trying to get up, getting submitted or something like that. So she just wrote it out on the ground. So I think there might be too much stock being put into that specific fight. There are question marks on Dumont, which is why I'm ultimately not betting it. But I do think she will win if she's able to keep this fight upright and get her striking off. Does she finish, lad? I'm not 100% sure. Like, she doesn't have the knockout power of Jermaine Durandamy, who was just so precise and on the nose with that strike that she was able to land and get lad out of there with. I just don't know if Dumont has it. I think it's more going to be an accumulative amount of damage that's going to have to take Lad out there, especially if she's able to stuff takedowns and keep this fight on the feet. So pick for me is Dumont by decision, but not a whole lot of confidence on that. So you guys got a lot of conflicting picks between me and Tajik throughout this entire podcast, which is great because we get to see both sides of the argument and see who ends up obviously being on the right side here. I'm sure I'll get a couple right. I'm sure Tajik will get a couple right, but I'm glad that I was able to get good points from either side here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, right? And I think a lot of times, our picks just as a picks coincide, and I think we're on the same side on a lot of them. But I think where we sometimes differ is on the value side, right? Like when we see certain value, we go for it, and so I think. But overall, great conversation.
For sure, for sure. I promise you guys, this is not the last time you guys are going to see Tajik on the channel. He is very much welcome on this channel, as all these great analysts are. But I like the way that Tajik breaks down these fights. Before we get going, though, I do want to drop the lock of the night plays, or the most confident plays that we have on the card. Personally, I am going the square route. Call me a square. I'm going Klein plus Emeev. I got them at minus 135 as my parlay. I went with that. Initially, I had Eubanks and Klein as my play, as I thought Eubanks was probably the safest. I probably could have even gone Eubanks inside the distance and been just as confident in that as well. But as soon as I got the news that she was out, I was lucky to beat my bookies to it. I was able to cash out to a $2 loss, which I'll more than happily be taking, just so that I can go out there and get the same type of value on Klein, and then add Emeev in there, who was my next confident pick on this card. So I got Emeev and Klein at minus 135. Tajik, what's your most confident play on this card?
Yeah, most confident is probably going to be done betting the Nas straight, betting Aspen Lot straight. I'll take Jim Miller by submission, and then I think I had one more, and I'll take Andrew Sanchez by TKO.
There you go. Plays from the GOAT, plays from your boy Locke as well too. Once again, I will be back tomorrow for the Fight Day live chat at 11 a.m. So make sure you guys tune in for that, taking all questions, comments, and concerns, just so you got right before the fight start off, so that you guys can place your bets. Tajik, is there anything you want to say on the back end here before I let you go, brother?
I want to say thank you, for this opportunity. Always, great talking with you, and thank you to your viewers and your fans. You have a great following. The comment section is lit on fire, and definitely, this won't be the last that we'll be seeing of me. Me and Manpreet, we talk, on Twitter all the time. So I look forward to coming back. But then let us know in the comment section if you want me back. Maybe you don't like me. I don't care, because if Manpreet decides, I'm gonna be back. So, but
Exactly.
do let us know. Do let us know. If, the feedback is important. It's good for us to know that the vibe is great. You're liking the breakdowns, the analysis, and everything else. It's great meeting you, Manpreet, and thanks everybody in the chat for watching this stream today.
Honestly, I appreciate the time, Tajik, and I know you probably have some business to take care of that we can't speak about at this point in time. So I'm just going to let you go off of that. But I do appreciate everybody joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe on the way out, and then obviously go out there and follow Tajik on Twitter. The link is in the description below, or you guys can just type in the screen name that you see on right under his face on the screen there for you guys as well. All right, good luck on your bets tomorrow, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fight Day live chat. War Ludovic Klein and Ramazan Emeev, and for my guy Tajik, War Aspen Lad as well. All right, take it easy, guys.